Hey folks, welcome back to a special episode of Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening on the Series GG. You might be afraid, based on us being on this menu screen, that we're going to restart our playthrough yet again, but in fact, we're kind of doing the opposite of that. We may not get any gameplay in this video, I'm going to warn you. But what I am basically saying is, I think at this point we're not going to start again. And if we do, it'll be kind of an unexpected thing that we're doing. I think I've got, well, which I guess they always were, but I've got a plan where we're not going to have to restart anymore. Because we've kind of got ourselves in a position now where we can push through, we can get the fantasy ending of Kagetora slash Kenshin winning his famous rivalry with Shingen Takeda and pressing on to conquer the Kanto and then ultimately all of Japan. And that's kind of the ending I wanted to show. And I think we can play through the historical events that we've seen through a variety of jumping around, the events that would get us there. And what I did is I played off screen to get all the events. So if there's something we don't get, I can just show it to you in the menu, and I can narrate it about where it would pop up. And and the thing that really made this happen, which I feel like an idiot for not finding it earlier, but in my defense, this would not have been possible in most of the preceding games. In the game I spent the most time in of the Nobunaga games, Sphere of Influence, you don't get the events for forces that you're not in. If you want to see these events, you have to play through the list of force whose events they are. In this game, we have the events for other kingdoms play out. Or forces, whatever. Daimyo houses. So, after messing around with it a bit, I eventually realized, hey, the way to get these events to happen was I started playing in a clan. I don't even remember their names. I feel bad for it now because we kind of owe them a lot. I played with the clan in the southern tip of Hokkaido. I would kind of built up myself as good as possible and maintained a high trust rating with the Nanbu, who were my nearest neighbors who could come conquer me, and just let time pass. And as long as you're willing to, by and large, the events are going to play out. Now, the further you drift from the start of a scenario, the more likely it is for the events to get derailed. But, yeah, I managed to get through the events that we needed to play through the events of the Nagao slash Uesugi. Now, most of the Nagao slash Uesugi events, we actually were probably halfway or almost halfway through. We'd gotten through quite a few of them. Because there's kind of a gap, and all the events, a lot of the later events for the Uesugi relate to the succession crisis that occurs after Kagetora Nagao, aka Kenshin Uesugi, dies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to recap in this video the history of the clan up to the point that we've gotten to. And then we're going to segue into doing events that are going to happen after the point that I want to make sure we don't follow the history anymore. Okay? So this is going to be a talkie video, and I'm hoping we'll get to some events, but we might not, depending on how long I spend flapping my gums. So let's kind of cover the history so far, and I think I'm already, I think I've already got a minor problem with my timer here. Alright. Because I don't want this video to be extra long, but I do want to, Alright, so what I've got open now is, I've got the names of our events written down so I can kind of zip through. I'm not going to rewatch them, but we've got the events that we've already seen. So we got Kagetora's, or not, sorry, give me 1 second here. I'm fiddling with inputs. I'll get on track here in a moment, folks. All right, so we've got Kagetora's temperament, which is about Tamakage Nagao. He's dying, and it's time to hand over the clan to one of his sons. But the Nagao clan, and this is kind of our starting point here, the Nagao clan are, it's my understanding of them is that they are subordinate clan to the Uesugi. They are a samurai clan, but they are supposed to show their loyalty to the Uesugi clan. But the Nagao clan has some problems with not being totally divided, and Tamikage Nagao has been an effective leader for the clan, trying to keep them together. But he's, there's some limited success. There are some Nagao clan retainers who are not going to fall in line, and after Tamikage is dead, they might try to go off their own ways. But even more so, the Uesugi, the clan they're supposed to be serving, is splintered to the point where in this game they're actually portrayed as being multiple forces, like the Y Uesugi, the T Uesugi, whatever. They're not even unified as one Uesugi force. They're like separate forces with different groups, and they're not all on the same side. And then the other important thing to understand is that the Uesugi, your basic political structure of Japan at the time, the emperor is the emperor. He's supposed to be the son of heaven, descended from Amaterasu, the sun goddess. For most of Japanese history, including this period of time, the emperor is not the actual, he's the de jure, but not the de facto ruler. The emperor does not have real power. The actual, it is more of a symbolic thing. The actual ruler of the country is the shogun. And the shogun is the ruler, and his two most powerful deputies are the Kanrai. I might be pronouncing it wrong. I think it's pronounced Kanrai. And you have a Kyoto Kanrai and a Kanto Kanrai. And they're supposed to be roughly equally powerful, and the Kyoto Kanrai rules the area around Kyoto, which I guess basically would mean he's got control of, like, western Honshu. Honshu is kind of a southwest to northeast island in a, real map of the world that isn't angled slightly. So the Kanto Kanrai is ruling from the Kanto Plains, which is where modern-day Tokyo is located. So sort of the Kyoto Kanrai would rule southwest Japan, and the Kanto Kanrai rules northeast Japan, and by which I mean Honshu. And they're both subordinate to the shogun. And the Uesugi are supposed to be the holders of the title of Kanto Kanrai. And this isn't actually happening because there's an upstart clan called the Hojo clan, who are one of the clans that holds territory in the Kanto Plains, and they're starting to expand. And one of the reasons they're able to do this is because they have two fairly powerful neighbors who are like right at their, kind of on their western front are the Takeda and the Imagawa. And they form what I keep jokingly referring to as the Triple Jump Moonsault Alliance. I think they're the Koso Sun something alliance. It's basically a tripartite alliance between these three great houses. It frees Shingen up to conquer territory sort of to his north, which includes knocking out some of the warlords between him and the Nagao. It frees the Hojo to concentrate on moving sort of east and taking over the Kanto. And it frees up the Imagawa to move west, potentially moving towards Kyoto. And the Uesugi are kind of split, and they're supposed to have influence and power in the Kanto Plain. But the Hojo start rolling up their, different subordinate groups, and Kagetora, who is the more capable of the two sons, at least that I'm aware of Tamikage. He's the younger brother. He's not one of these younger brothers. This is a theme we'll find out with Kagetora. There's all sorts of stuff about samurai honor and the Bushido Code, and you have guys like Shingen who know the rules and can have the rules of Bushido in his mouth while his mind or his heart are actually plotting to find some way to twist things to his advantage. The old, very Eastern idea that, and I'm not trying to say that Asian people are sneaky, but it is a cultural thing. It's Japanese in particular, that you have the three hearts. You have the heart that you show the world, you have the heart you show only to your friends, and then you have your innermost heart that you show to no one. So it's accepted that you're going to be out there saying one thing in the public world and maybe believing something else. That's not necessarily bad. That's good. That's what's expected of a man of intelligence. And Shingen is a guy who's going to be a little sneaky. But Kagetora is a guy like those Buddhist rules of samurai conduct. He takes that shit seriously, and he's not the oldest son, so he's not the one who's set to inherit the clan. And he doesn't plot against his older brother. He just decides he wants to go into the priesthood and study the ways of Zen Buddhism. But his brother is just not as capable a leader as he is, and that becomes a problem. So then we get to trying to find the next event that we got. Kagetora Nagao rises. So we began the whole scenario, and I was joking around about, yeah, we're going to bring Harukage Nagao all the way through to the end. So Harukage Nagao isn't up to the task. He's sickly, and he ends up... his retainers, including Kagekatsu Naue, which is a subordinate clan to the Nagao and the Uesugi, they ask Kagetora to come out of the world of Buddhist seclusion and take over the clan. And Kagetora resists initially, but his mentor and others convince him that he can spend, he can worry in the hereafter about the truths of the universe, but for now, he can't quite afford to detach himself from earthly things yet. He has a duty to do to his family. The way it's portrayed in this game, at least, there's no plotting involved. His brother realizes he's not long for this world. He's not the man fit to lead the Nagao. Kagetora rides out to beat up on people who are, rebelling against the Nagao. He has incredible success. Everyone agrees he's the man. And his older brother, rather than acting like Nobunaga's brother and making a fight of it and spoiling the clan, Kagetora's brother is like, you know what? You know what you're doing. I'm going to get out of your way. Christianity arrives. No officers are involved. We have the Echigo Agents Clan dissolve. This is an interesting quickie where Sadazane Uesugi, he's one of these little Uesugi groups that's supposed to be all in one clan, but they're all split, and you have a guy who's like, hey, this Nagao guy, I could give this to one of my other people in the Uesugi family. I don't have a son. I don't like anyone else in the Uesugi. It's a very sad event, because I remember it's one of the first times I remember them using the sad music. Like the serene sad music. But he just, this Kagetora Nagao guy, he seems to know what the fuck he's doing. I'll turn it over to him. And then we have some fun stuff with Harunobu Takeda, the man who will become Shingen. The man who kicks his, he's the rival of Kenshin. He kicks his own father out of the country and takes over. Whereas Kagetora / Kenshin retires to a monastery to try to avoid the conflicts of the world and is dragged into them. Harunobu Takeda is a man who will send his own father into exile so that he can seize power. And he beats up, in our second reality, because in my first one, I ruined things by attacking the Murakami and taking over their lands. But in fact, it's Shingen who's supposed to kick out Yoshikiyo. And we had the fun event here. Masakage Nagao surrenders. This Masakage Nagao he's part of the clan, but he's not like a brother of these two, and he's a guy who he's sort of rebellious, and he's building up his own castle, he's doing his own thing, and Kagetora, in a very Japanese way, marches out with a huge army. But once he gets there, he's got an army big enough to sack the castle, but once he gets there, he's like, oh, I'm not coming to sack the castle. I just figured you would want to see how impressive our army is and join us. And Masakage is like, well, alright, you can have the castle. Spare my men. Do you need me to split my belly? Is that how we're going to do this? And Kagetora, in the typical fashion of any great Eastern warlord leader, is like, I could have you kill yourself, or I could have you put to death, but actually, the smart call is I'm going to treat you well so that you're loyal, and you know what you're doing, and I need men who know what they're doing, so I need you to join me. And Masakage is like, cool, let's do that. And Kagetora is like, you know what, and the other thing I'm going to do to make sure that, I have people I can depend on around here, I'm going to marry you to my sister, Sentoine. Sentoine is portrayed in the Samurai Warriors games as... Oh god, what is her character? I'm blanking. Aya, who is portrayed as this weird... Yeah, Samurai Warriors was stuck because they had... I guess not stuck. They already had Nohime, the wife of Nobunaga, as a weird, busty, psycho. Oh, she's got a weird, sexual sadist thing going on. Oh, it's kinky and crazy. And Aya shows up, and she's just weird and sultry, and cold but hot. Personally cold, but her body is hot. I'm trying to say this not sound like a perv, but in Samurai Warriors, there's definitely a weird flavor to Aya. But in actual history, she was she herself was famous for being a nun later in life. But yeah, she's the sister to these famous warlords, and she's like, I'll marry this guy, and I'll do what I need to do for the clan. And Masakage comes full-fledged into the clan and becomes one of the most valuable subordinates that Kagetora has. And we watched that one. Then we have, it's a really important event for our storyline. The Hojo are just like slapping around all these lesser Uesugi and other jobbers who are preventing them from dominating the Kanto. And Noramasa Uesugi, who's one of these guys who's like, his station in the old shogun's political order is higher than his actual power or aptitude. So he flees to Kagetora. He's like, the Hojo kicked me out. I need you as a member of the Nagao, my subordinate clan, to go take over the Kanto and give it to me. And Kagetora's like, yeah, of course I'll do that, because I'm a member of the Nagao, my clan is subordinate to the Uesugi, and it is my duty to do this, even though you're a loser. And what you're asking me to do feels almost impossible. And you certainly don't have the ability to get this done on your own, but I will do everything I can to make this work for you. Then we have this fun event where Yoshikiyo Murakami is kicked out of his castle, which leads to stuff where he comes and joins us. This is only really interesting because Yoshikiyo later is involved in storyline events. He joins the Uesugi, I mean the Nagao, in order to get his territory back from the Takeda. But Kagetora is like, I can't imagine he's a very fun person to hang out with in real life, because he's a hardcore into like Buddhist, particularly Bishamonten, the Buddhist god of war. He's extremely stern and he's strict. He is, I think I read, he is completely celibate as one of the rules of the order that he belongs to. So he's a bit of a religious zealot, but he's a real one. He actually follows the Bushido code that so many other daimyo, like, they mouth the words of the Bushido code and then they break it anytime they can find a way to do so without being exposed as hypocrites for their own advantage. But Kagetora is a real one. He brings in Yoshikiyo knowing all Yoshikiyo really wants to do is use the strength in the Nagao to get his own territory back. But again, he treats him well and he uses him well, and Yoshikiyo later in the narrative, when they go off to do something that is not going to help him get his castles back, he's like, you know what? I've converted. I'm ride or die with Kagetora. Now we have Kagetora goes to Kyoto. He has the events where he meets the Shogun, and this is a flex move too. Kagetora has built the Nagao by conquering he slaps around everybody who's sort of fermenting rebellion. He gets his own house in order. He starts rewarding his most capable officers, and he builds the Nagao into a force that's strong enough to take on the Hojo or the Takeda or the Imagawa. Not all three at once, but basically he's pretty strong at this point. And what's preventing him from achieving his immediate goals is that these other warlords are aligning against him. So he marches through to Kyoto. This will involve putting together a large retinue of troops, large enough to be his bodyguards to protect him, but not an invading army. It's a bit of a flex to even show up in Kyoto, because he has to march through the territory of these other warlords. To do that, he has to be secure that no one's going to attack him and kill him, because the force he's gathered will come and avenge him. So he's strong enough that he can dare risk being ambushed or killed on the road. He goes, he meets the Shogun, and again, Kagetora is a real one. The Shogun is a bit of a figurehead, doesn't have the power that he should have, because the Miyoshi clan are kind of ruling the territory around Kyoto. The Ashikaga clan are nominally in charge, but the Miyoshi are effectively ruling the area. Kagetora, and some of this is true history, and some of this is a romanticized version that this game is presenting. But at least in this game, Kagetora doesn't like this and sort of, commensurates with the Shogun, and the two of them form a connection. And Kagetora comes back even more convinced. I'm going to restore the Uesugi as the Kanto Kanrai, and then the next thing I'm going to do after that is I'm going to step up one more step in the political order, not for myself. I'm going to go up and I'm going to sort shit out so that the Shogun is the Shogun and is actually running the show and get rid of all these rebels and traitors. And I'm not going to do it. Kagetora you know, per what we think we know about the guy, I wasn't there to watch it happen. Kagetora seems to be doing this because it's the right thing to do for Japan. He's a real one. He really believes in this Bushido code, and he really believes, I'm not out there trying to become the shogun. I'm out there trying to restore things so that honor rules the day, and that the shogun can rule as he should, and that the Kanrais can rule under the shogun, and that the land will actually follow, you know, honorable courses of conduct. Comes back, and what's our next event here? This is where the Triple Jump of Moonsault Alliance forms in reality, because Kagetora has actually been building up his power to do something, and the trip to meet the Shogun is part of where he sort of gets the political legitimacy. The Shogun, you know, offers him titles and treats him like he's a badass. The Shogun recognizes this is a man who knows what he's doing, and this kind of empowers Kagetora to march against the Hojo. But the Hojo, in the meantime, are forming this Triple Jump Moonsault Alliance with the Takeda and the Imagawa. And other stuff, and Kagetora absconds. I don't really remember what this one's about at all, actually. So I don't remember what. Oh, this is the one where he temporarily leaves and goes back. Like, yeah, this I don't know how much history this has, but I guess there's something to it. I don't want to watch it again now. But basically, Kagetora just acts like his own officers. Like, his own officers aren't following him closely enough. They don't feel like they're taking things seriously, so he kind of, like, makes a show of quitting the whole business and going back to the monastery, and his officers rally together and, you know, wipe their noses clean, and Kagetora comes back to lead them. Then we get... I kind of forgot about that event, actually. But it's kind of a preface to where we get into the real business here, which is... Kagetora makes another visit. This time, the Shogun's offering him to change his name and accept the title from the Shogun's own name to his new name. And Kagetora refuses because he hasn't done anything to earn it yet. But it's sort of like it's like reinforcing his resolve to get out there and kick the Hojo out of the Kanto and restore the Uesugi control as the Kanto Kanrai. We have the death of Yoshimoto. Are these in the correct order? Yeah. So, yeah, I think I got myself confused about the timeline, but the big thing now is we got the Triple Jump Moonsault Alliance is really stopping. The Nagao are strong enough to go head-to-head with the Takeda or the Hojo, but they can't really do it with the Takeda and the Hojo together and with the Imagawa backing them. But then we have... The Takeda are protected on their south by the Alliance and can move in the north against the various clans, including the Nagao that are to their north. And we've got some skirmishes that happen between the Nagao and the Takeda. The Hojo are empowered to move east and start taking over the Kanto, but the Imagawa, as I mentioned before, what they get out of this is they can now march west. So they do so, and then they lose, and they lose badly, and they are shocked at the Battle of Ogehazama. This is the thing that puts Nobunaga on the map as a big player. He wipes out a massive Imagawa army and kills their daimyo, and kind of surprises everyone and shocks the world. And the Imagawa go into a major decline. And it's right around this time that we get the Hojo conquest, which is where Kagetora Nagao basically says, all right, now it's time. We're serious. We're going to go into the Kanto, and we're gonna beat the shit out of the Hojo, and we're gonna rescue these small clans in the Kanto from Hojo domination, and we're gonna reassert the power of the Uesugi. And this is all tied in directly with the God of War from the north, where Ujiyasu Hojo is the leader of the Hojo clan and the one who's in charge of their expansion. We've seen Tsuneshige Hojo out there leading armies in the past. But when Kagetora goes down there, Kagetora, as a leader of troops, he's a guy who leads from the front. He's a daimyo who rides with his cavalry. and he is a whole different kettle of fish from what the Hojo have been fighting. They've been beating up some weaker clans who don't have particularly strong officers, but Kagetora is like, he turns out to be one of the all-time great field commanders in samurai history, and he engineers a series of stunning victories and is basically knocking on the door of the Hojo main base. Even in my on-screen where we were like, you know, because we on-screen form an alliance with the Date and attack the Hojo while they're in the middle of marching against another clan, and like, none of that happens. I think Kagetora has the advantage that he doesn't have to individually take over a bunch of territories to get to the Hojo capital. He's just able to race past a bunch of territory without specifically conquering it, and just going to like attack and surround the Hojo's castle. And he doesn't have an alliance with the Date or anything like that. He just goes down there and like beats the Hojo. He's moving faster than they're expected. They are not reacting quickly. He defeats them in the open field, and he's basically gets down there to Odawara Castle, and he's like ready to take it out and defeat the Hojo, like in one big shot. The Hojo are now desperate for help. And this is the succession of the Kanto Kanrai event. I don't remember exactly what that one entails and whether we actually did it. Maybe we need to do that one again. I think I did this one on screen, and I'm not sure. But basically, we're all moving towards Kanzuke's scheme. This is when one of Shingen's, like the Hojo, basically go to Shingen for help, and they're like, "Look, we've got this alliance. We're supposed to be watching each other's backs. The Nagao, who are like on your northern border, just like went east and south, completely went around you in a big swooping arc, and are attacking my castle. Can you do something about this, please?" And Kanzuke Yamamoto is one of the one who comes up with a scheme on how to actually fight the Takeda, or rather the Nagao. That leads us to the battles of Kawaka and Ajima, which was the big battle that we did on screen, where it's an interesting fight. Shingen has a slightly larger army, but basically this is a really interesting one too, because we are now Masatora Uesugi. That's what this one is. Okay, we won't have to watch it. The succession of the Kanto Kanrai is because the Nagao armies have just like marched deep into Hojo territory, and as displayed, as it's kind of portrayed in the game, we've got this guy, this Uesugi guy who, yeah, Noramasa. As it's portrayed in the game, the Shogun's kind of given Kagetora the right to, all right, why don't you become the head of the Uesugi? Because you're the head of the Nagao, and the Nagao are supposed to be subordinate to the Uesugi. But you're the one who actually seems to know how to get shit done. Why don't you become the head of the Uesugi? And in this game's narrative, Noramasu Uesugi is like, you know what? I think that's a good idea. In real history, it's more likely because in this game, like, we can make him the daimyo of a small castle, and he can develop it and whatever. In real history, I think he's just hanging around as a guest of the Nagao, not actively doing anything. But in this version of reality, he's like, yes, you should. Why don't you seize control of what was my clan? Because you actually know what you're doing. And so he does. And because it happens deep in the territory of the Hojo, it's a particularly big blow to the Hojo's prestige. And he becomes, at that point, Masatora Uesugi. So then you have the Battle of Kawanakajima. The Takeda have built a castle close to the Nagao border, basically telegraphing the fact that they're going to go up there and attack. And Kagetora Nagao, now Masatora Uesugi, is trying to make preparations to besiege the Hojo, but he's been more successful than anyone probably could have figured he could be. And then he kind of blows their minds again by scrambling back. Like, I think his mobility is what really surprised people. because we're not working in the age of Google Maps and cell phone service. Like, he manages to get back to his own base in time to actually stop Shingen from attacking his base. So he gets all the way back, and Shingen and his advisors have a pretty damn good plan called the Woodpecker Plot, where they're going to attack the Uesugi with a kind of, mobile unit. They have this, like, auxiliary unit that's going to attack. That's supposed to force the Uesugi to respond in a certain way. And if the Uesugi respond the way that's predicted, the Takeda main army can then move in and kind of pincer and crush. Instead, Masatora is just too fucking good. He figures out where Shingen is. Masatora is a guy who rides with the cavalry. Shingen is, ironically, that's the quote traditional way for a brave samurai to lead. But the real traditional way for a samurai to lead is from the back, issuing orders. That's what the daimyo really does. But Masatora, he knows the battlefield where they're fighting. He knows the geography, and he figures out where Shingen would set up he would set up a defensible main camp. He gives Shingen the credit to pick a good site, but he also figures out what that site would be. And then when the Woodpecker auxiliary unit attacks, rather than moving as expected, he just leads a full-on balls-to-the-wall charge against where he figures Shingen's camp is, and he's right. And then you have something that happens all the time in anime and manga and movies, but didn't really happen that much in real life, which is where the two daimyo of the two armies actually encounter each other on the battlefield, because Masatora Uesugi literally rides up to Shingen Takeda and tries to kill him with a sword. And Shingen famously has to block with his iron war fan, which is not a weapon for dueling one-on-one with, or really even a weapon at all. But that ends with both men still alive, and the Uesugi escape before the Takeda can kind of scramble their forces back to defend the camp. And Masatora basically manages to pull a draw from the jaws of defeat. But it's still pretty impressive, because he got his whole army all the way back from the Kanto and Hojo territory in time to force the Takeda into a draw and save his main camp and capital. And then you have the retreat event, which was pretty fun. And then I guess Masatora is going to change his name. I think this. I can't remember if we did this or not. But that's kind of where we are. I'm pressing the attack after the battle at Kawanakajima. The last gameplay video was us pushing an attack and trying to start taking the Takeda castles, because we can finally do that. Everything we did up to this point attacking the Takeda and taking their castles was screwing up the Battle of Kawanakajima. But the Battle of Kawanakajima is key for an event that I really want to get, which is the fictional event where Kenshin Uesugi finally settles the score, his ultimate rival Shingen, and they're an interesting sort of rivalry. It's two men who are both incredibly capable with very different approaches. Shingen, the ultimate, my inner heart is different from my outer heart. I will speak the words of samurai morality and honor, but I will plot and scheme and find ways to get victory. But Kenshin is the guy, he's the real one who's actually conducting himself with honor at all times. And that's part of the reason they make such great rivals. And this video basically served, and it's just about time to call it, wrapped it up just at about the right time. That's kind of the story so far, without the fact that we attacked the Jinbo and the Hatakeyama and the Ashina. That doesn't happen. Kenshin never defeats the Ashina. He never wars with the Ashina. Sometime, and there's no events related to it, I've checked. At some point, he takes over the Jinbo territories, and I don't know if it's because they surrender to him, or if they just get absorbed passively, or if he fights them, or what. And the events about how he takes over the Hatakeyama castle stuff actually is historical stuff that we don't want to see, because it ties into the events where Kenshin kind of meets his end, and we move into what we'll talk about in the next video, which is all the historical stuff that happens with the Uesugi that we're not going to see. And the reason I'm going to do this video and the next is I want to show all that history because in the video after that one, assuming I can get it all done in one video, we're going to jump back into the game we've been playing, and I will have showed you all the historical events that I don't intend for us to ever see, and I'll have all the historical events that I want for us to see, but we might not unlock, ready to go in my back pocket in case we want to show them, because I've got them all unlocked now for the Uesugi. And when we get back to gameplay, we're just going to play through, and we're going to win the game, and we're going to conquer Japan, and we're not going to do any more start at a different scenario. That's the plan. Next time, we're going to go through some events. We're gonna see the true story of how the Uesugi clan kind of really does end up, and the final historical events we get for the Uesugi. And we'll do that next time. Thanks for watching, guys.